Welcome to a new episode of the Erasing Shame podcast, where we are encouraging Christian Asian mental health. I'm your host, DJ Chuang. I'm joined here today with Peter Ma, who is a grateful believer in Jesus Christ and a member at NewStory Church in Los Angeles, California. And on this episode, we're going to have a conversation, unhurried, unscripted, about life at NewStory Church and how they foster a sense of belonging and community through a program called Celebrate Recovery. Peter, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it, DJ.
Yes, I've gotten some exposure to this program called Celebrate Recovery because I'm a member at a little church called Saddleback. Not so little because they reach about 25,000 people on the weekend with a dozen or so locations here in Southern California and 4 internationally. And one of their most helpful and transformative programs is called Celebrate Recovery, which was founded 20, 30 plus years ago. That helps people recover with faith and with community over their hurts, habits, and hangups. And so we're going to talk a bit about that program and what it looks like to bring that to a normal sized church, places that don't look so much like Saddleback. So Peter, thank you for hosting Celebrate Recovery with a team of people there. So we're going to take a look under the hood and also get a sense of your own story. So as it is with every Celebrate Recovery open share time, we start with a brief introduction. So I'll hand you the mic and you can talk for 3 to 5 minutes.
Well, my name is Peter. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I struggle with drugs, alcohol, depression, anxiety, anger, rage, low self-esteem.
Okay, enough.
Yeah, a bunch of other stuff. Yeah, you get the point. So, well, in the spirit of Celebrate Recovery, I would say that I'm having a challenging time right now, trying to learn about myself, coming out of pandemic. And as a lot of people did, I found out some things about myself, trying to figure myself out, trying to figure out who I am, redefining myself and trying to understand myself better. Particularly right now, in the past 3 months, I've known of about 10 people who've passed away. And 3 in the last 3 weeks, all 3 being clients, one of whom passed while I was with her. But yet I'm not feeling as moved as I should be. And I'm just trying to explore through, where is that, and I find myself snacking, munching, watching a lot of TV videos, just kind of numbing myself, drowning myself out. And I think back and I find that there's moments when that's how I felt like when I was using or when I was drinking. I didn't really care about anything. I just wanted to forget about the world. I don't want to deal with my thoughts or feelings. And maybe to a certain point, I even got to a point where I was apathetic. And, this past Sunday, Pastor David had preached on the 7th deadly sin of our series, which was sloth, being a sloth or slothful, which is he defined it as experiencing apathy and avoidance, and that's really what I'm going through. I feel fine in one sense, and in another sense, I feel like something's wrong with me because I'm not feeling what I should be feeling after these type of incidences or passings, I should say. I'm sorry, and so I'm just trying to journey through this and asking the Lord, what's happening, and trying to recognize when I feel like the addiction kicking in and wanting to do things that would help me escape, like shopping, eating, binge watching, which have become which are identified now as my new addictions. And but I find that it's similar what I experienced mentally and emotionally, it's very similar to when I was using,
Mm,
which is pretty scary, but yet at the same time, it's very eye opening. Um, addiction in the past for me was all about chemical dependency, drugs and alcohol. If you weren't going through that, you weren't going through serious recovery. But I'm realizing more and more that those other things have just as much of a stronghold as drugs and alcohol. Only the other things won't necessarily kill you, but they will have just as much of a hold as drugs or alcohol. So I'm in a phase of discovery. I'm trying to spend a little more time with the Lord and trying to get to the root of what's happening and dealing with stress of work and and yeah, just trying to balance it all out and trying to figure out what God's trying to teach me, what He's showing me, and how I can make it through this particular season of life that He has me in right now. Just knowing and trusting that He's with me. I'm in His hands. Um, try not to put too much pressure on myself to figure it out. But like I said, continually finding myself in this insanity of trying to figure out my own process of dealing with things too, as well. But thankful and grateful that I'm not turning to drugs and alcohol. Was that 3 or 4 minutes?
and then you end with, "Thank you for
Oh,
letting me share."
thank you for letting me share.
Thank you. I wanted to start with that as a immersive experience for our listeners to get an experience what open share is like, and then we'll kind of explain how do you create a time and space for this, what the program looks like in the church, and why this is so powerful. And one of the things I did to quote unquote hold the space, that's a lingo that some people use in the therapeutic world. And basically, it's um, being actively listening. People that are listening are being quiet and empathetic and non-judgmental. And the language they use in Celebrate Recovery is no crosstalk, which means I don't interrupt. I don't even say amen. I might have hummed a little bit or nodded my head, and definitely do not give advice and tell what people are doing right or wrong, even if they are doing right. That can come later in the fellowship time. But during that open share time, and I find it to be the most powerful and safe place during the entire Celebrate Recovery weekly meeting, that everybody gets an open mic. They call it open share, and they have 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how many people are in the group and how much time you have overall in the program for people to share. And so go ahead and let's start with the concrete. Let's work our way out. So anything else you want to add on open share before we take a look at what the weekly program looks like and then how you would install and start a program like that in a church?
I have one thing to add about open share and the
Mm,
3 to 5 minutes is that I've been involved with Celebrate Recovery at two different churches. One
mm,
being Saddleback Anaheim is where I
mm,
started, and now NewStory is that in that 3 to 5 minutes, what I'm able to share is probably one of the most impactful, most freeing, and liberating time that I really have. I experienced that at Saddleback Anaheim, and I tried to foster that here at New Story. But it's really part of the DNA of Celebrate Recovery that I think is really really powerful. You would not think that 3 minutes or 4 minutes or 5 minutes would be able to do what it does,
mhm,
but especially when you bring the Lord into it, I think
mhm,
He can move mountains,
mhm,
right? With the faith of a
mhm,
mustard seed. So if you have a little bit of hope, a little bit of faith, God can do things in those few minutes, and that's one of the
mhm.
things I really appreciate about Celebrate Recovery. It's a little bit different than
Yeah.
some of the other um, A's, you know,
Mm, good,
other
good point.
anonymouses, is
Yes.
that, you don't have a certain amount of time. You just kind of share what you want to share if you don't want to share. Um,
Hmm.
but I like that the time limit thing. It just kind of gives you a concentrated focus on what's happening. You can be able to verbalize and get it out, and sometimes just release it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's an
Yes.
added perspective that I wanted to share.
Yeah, I agree with that so much. And I know for me, the other 167 hours a week, you don't have a time to just let it out and let your hair down if you have hair. Just let it out, because so much of our hurts, habits, and hangups, whether that moves us towards bad habits like addictions, or we're just in the midst of struggle with mental health disorder symptoms, that we stuff it in. And the thing is, our body keeps score and it hurts us, not just emotionally, mentally, but also physically and all kinds of other ways. And that open share space becomes almost a sacred space, because we are bringing the faith element into it. And I know for the team that prepares that space, there's prayer that goes into it. And so that just makes it very, very much powerful.
That's right.
Mhm. Okay, so continue. What happens before and after that open share during the weekly gathering that a church would host for Celebrate Recovery?
So throughout the week, the team keeps in contact. We communicate with one another about any needs, prayer, whether it's logistical or whether it's a prayer requests. Um, so that's one thing, we stay connected. Um, we're praying for the ministry. We're praying for the attendees. We're praying for ourselves to be ready for what God has started in within us, and to where He's leading us, and preparing the hearts and minds of those who He's invited to come. And so there's all week long there's something going on. You know, Day of, it's really simple. We get there. Most Celebrate Recoveries will actually serve or provide, or with a small donation, a meal. We've During the pandemic, because of restrictions, we did away with that, and so we haven't brought that back. But we do provide snacks, coffee, and drinks. So at least there's something that people can nibble on, so they don't get hangry, and maybe not share what's really in their heart, but what's in their stomach, maybe, or what's not in their stomach. Yeah, then we set up. We get everything prepared, and pray for, and wait for the souls that God is called to us for the night.
Now,
Uh,
at New Story, you're in downtown LA. What part of Los Angeles? So people that might be
so
local can
right,
maybe visit.
so we are basically on the other side of the 110 freeway, the opposite side of the 110 freeway, where USC is located. So
Okay, near
Jefferson and
USC.
Broadway. So
Very
if you
good.
were at USC, you'd go east, cross
Hmm.
over, take Jefferson, and on the corner of Jefferson and Broadway, where a warehouse looks like a warehouse. It's right there on the right hand side
Okay.
corner.
And you have Celebrate Recovery on Monday nights,
We do
and you
Monday
do it
night.
in a hybrid fashion now post COVID. So you have a in-person program, and then you also invite people to join on Zoom. And I've gotten to visit several times,
Yeah,
and it really is as close as you can get to the experience without being there. So that really saves me a commute, because I live all the way down here in South Orange County, and I'd imagine you also allow people to come in from outside of the state if they need be. But you do have a sign up process on your website, so
correct.
people
So
can
yeah,
join on Zoom,
they
right?
can. They can notify us of their interest. We'll send
Hmm.
them the information, and they can join from wherever they like. We've had
Hmm.
people join from India. We've had
Wow.
people join. We have a brother who joined from New York often, and just all over the place, not just Southern California, but Texas, Washington. So it's kind of nice that we have this platform to be able to share this experience and this time with anybody around the world.
Yeah. And so as the program starts, what can a person expect to experience?
I think over time, I think initially there might be a little bit of apprehension, a little bit of nervousness, anxiety, but I find that people who do end up attending the meetings, whether online or in person, they're there for a reason. They're
Mm,
they're trying to work through some of their hurts, habits, or hangups. Maybe trying to break a cycle of insanity, of whatever struggle that they might have, and and most of the time they'll share something. They'll share. We give them an opportunity to say no. All we ask is that they introduce themselves and state that they'd rather not share, which is totally fine. And but at the very least, you'll get them to say that they're maybe lightly, generally discuss or share what their struggle is and in what area, and that they're just there to check it out. And but just I believe that even in that, sharing what their struggle is powerful too, because they're starting to work through the process of denial. And
mhm.
you speak about it, talk about it, you're making it more concrete, and
Mhm,
you're putting it out there,
mhm,
and you're hearing yourself. So there's
mhm.
psychological things that go on too. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I believe that also is good for your soul and can be
Yes.
spiritual,
Yes.
if you bring that God into it.
Yeah. That's a really warm invitation. So
Mhm.
just step us through the program because a lot of people are not familiar with ever going.
Right.
So once they step in the door, they get a nice welcome. How does the program start?
So
What
yeah,
do
so
they hear?
you'll enter our halls or our building. Um, you'll be greeted. You'll get a name tag. We'll have some literature up the front. We try to put a candle, scented candle, so it's you start off with a nice impression, and then you'll go down the hall. You'll turn down the other hall. You go into the room where we'll be. Small congregation type setting, chairs, screen, a like not really a pulpit, but like a stand, like a speaker stand, and welcome everybody in, say hellos. We'll start with a few songs of praise, so we'll have a little time of worship. I'll be honest, right now we don't have live worship. We God hasn't blessed us with someone who is gifted musically, or someone who's gifted musically who's willing to be there. So that's something that we're praying about it. If you guys can keep that in mind, that'd be great. Um, and then it begins. So in the format of Celebrate Recovery, it's typically some songs of worship. There will be opening prayer. There will be some announcements. We'll go through the the 8 principles. Some go through the 12 steps as well, and then we'll have either a teaching or we'll have a testimony. So this week, I believe we're going to have a testimony, and then once the testimony is complete, we finish with the Serenity Prayer, and then we break out into small groups. That first portion is what we call the large group. The large group is roughly about 45 or so minutes, give or take, depending on how long the lesson is, or how long the testimony is. It could be shorter than that, but it just depends. Then we'll break out into a separate men's and women's groups. We're not at the size where we have different topics, but it's men and women. So we can keep kind of it's gender specific, and there's things that are sensitive to males versus females, men versus women, that we try to respect that. Some of the we call them housekeeping rules is that we ask that if you're there on Zoom, that you turn your camera on so we can see that there's no one there listening in, because some of the information can be very personal, very confidential. As you can see, there's no one here, but we ask if possible that people will use headphones or earphones or earbuds. That's one. We do not record the meetings, and we do take confidentiality very seriously. We're we're not held to, any HIPAA regulations or anything like that. But because we've gone through our own personal deep journeys, we know it's like needing that confidentiality.
Hmm.
And then, so we'll break up into the small groups. Like you said, one of the rules is no crosstalk. We want to give everybody an opportunity to be able to speak openly and freely without interruption or without distraction, to just really get to dig deep inside to figure out or to identify, what it is that's on their mind and on their hearts at that moment. Um, Everyone gets a turn, has the opportunity to just share. We will open up the small groups with prayer. We'll go over the housekeeping rules, guidelines, and then we'll go into it. It's open. It's not assigned. You're free to share. You're free not to share. No judgment. And we really just sit in silence. And you might get a head nod, a head nod, a smile, you know, or something like that. But there's no crosstalk. And when we're done, we also we celebrate sobriety and recovery. Sorry, I should say recovery, by doing the chip ceremony, and that's where we honor people who have various lengths of sobriety, or in various stages of their recovery, that they'll get a chip to recognize that amount of time. And then we'll close with prayer, and we'll close also with the Lord's Prayer, and then that's it. And after that, it's cleanup and fellowship time.
Thank you. Thank you for reviewing that and sharing that with our audience. We do have listeners primarily on all kinds of podcast channels, and we have a few viewers on Facebook and YouTube, so that we make this information as widely available as we can. And all of this is, like you mentioned, confidential and anonymous. So everybody just goes by first name basis. There's no emails that you get. Just the weekly meeting is announced on the church website and whatever other church communication. Now, in addition to this weekly gathering, there is something called the step study for those that want to work more intensively through a curriculum, a workbook, and have a sponsor and a more accountability structure to systematically work through the steps. So can you describe what that is like?
Right. So the step study is basically based off of the the 12 steps of AA, but they're backed up by biblical principles and scripture. So that's where in AA or the other A's, they will refer to their higher power. We refer to God, or Jesus, and we will base what we are doing in each step according to different scripture. And that scripture is based off of the Beatitudes from the Sermon on the Mount that Jesus gave, that's described throughout Matthew. So each step of the process is in where we ground it. The Bible has things to say about recovery in different parts. We put it together. John Baker and Rick Warren put together a really good program when they created Celebrate Recovery, or I don't know if it was developed, created, or inspired by God. I believe all of that, and it's something that has been working for quite some time. And so the step study, it goes through the process of coming out of denial, accepting that hardships can be a way to peace, and it's a place for someone to journey through these various, whether it's struggles, whether it's hurt, habit, or hang up that causes the struggles, whatever it may be, just kind of dissecting it, walking through it, and standing arm in arm with other brothers or sisters while you allow God to do the work. Our part is to say yes. Our part is to step into it, and the study itself guides you through, with the support of the brothers or sisters, and God is leading it the whole way. Um, so, it's there's a lot of components to it that I think is very spiritual. That could be very soul healing and mentally and emotionally freeing through a lot of the steps that you go through. Um, yeah, and I think it's great. I've known people who've gone through 10, 12, 14, 15 step studies to deal with different struggles that they have, and I think that's pretty amazing. Um, I know I got a lot of step studies to go through. As time goes on, God reveals to me more and more struggles that I have, and I believe if I was to write them down, there would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 15, 20, 25 different struggles that
Mm.
it's shown me throughout the course of the last few years.
Well, thank you for sharing all that. And if we're honest with ourselves, whether we have a diagnosable illness or we have a um, addiction that is debilitating, that we're all human and we all have issues. And this is all under really the process of sanctification and discipleship.
That's right.
And so when we bring all that together, it helps us to grow in Christ holistically. I just looked up the Celebrate Recovery website, which is celebraterecovery.com. And we'll encourage our viewers and listeners to take a look more closely at how a church can launch a program like this. But I wanted to share a real life story, example of what it looks like in a multi-ethnic, many Asian Americans that are part of a NewStory Church there in Los Angeles. More than 7 million people across the globe have been helped and walk in freedom because of Celebrate Recovery. So it's a very powerful, proven, evidence-based. You can use that terminology as well in terms of how people who have grown in Christ and have become stronger and healthier and experience freedom. So it's a wonderful, wonderful program. And as we close, just want to reflect a bit on, are there any special or unique things that you had to do in introducing a program like Celebrate Recovery in a church that's more culturally diverse, in dealing with Asian cultures? I know Pastor Tom worked at Saddleback, so he already had that connection with a lot of the resources at Saddleback Church and Celebrate Recovery. So I'm sure that helped to acclimate and help people get familiarized at the church with this kind of a program. But still, you do have a church that's largely non-white. And so sometimes, there are those cultural conversations that we need to have to understand one another and to do things. So did any of that come along in the process of launching and as Celebrate Recovery is happening there at NewStory?
Yeah, so I guess this is where we get into the nitty gritty. So because for me, because I was already participating or attending Celebrate Recovery, I was already aware of it. Something that I was committed to. And when Pastor Tom came on board, a few months in, he had Johnny Baker come and preach. At that time, one of my other brothers, his name is Patrick. He's a co-leader. He was moved by what Pastor Johnny was sharing, and and I was aware of what was being shared too as well, and thought, I've always had a thought or the feeling that the Asian community needs mental health services, needs recovery. And, I had obviously taken it upon myself to begin that journey years before. And this opportunity was something that presented itself to be a very exciting one, because not only were we going to launch it, we did do Celebrate Recovery years in the past, where it didn't sustain very long. I believe it was like a year or so. But this time it just seemed a little different, maybe because I was there, because I was in my own recovery, because I was part of CR. And because we had just become NewStory, Pastor Tom was there, former staff of Saddleback, and he was really pushing it and encouraging it. And so there was a number of us that got inspired and motivated, and feeling like the Lord was leading us in this direction, and we basically said yes to his invitation. There were conversations that were had between Pastor Tom, Patrick. We had a couple other like spiritual advisors that were on board with us, and just a handful of us got together, started praying about it, and eventually decided on a launch date, and we started. Church fully supported this ministry, backed it, shared about it. When we launched it, there was an actual series on recovery.
That really helps.
We had many testimonies. I believe it was 5 of them that were shared during service to just kind of shake people up a little bit and kind of bring recovery and struggle to the forefront. And that was January of 2020. We launched, I believe it was January 28th of 2020, and 2 months later, pandemic hit. So
Yes.
we've gone through or survived or made it through or struggled through or crawled through. We're barely, we barely made it through what we did through the pandemic. And so here we are.
Well, and that's turned out to be such a lifeline, really.
It has,
the pandemic was a very stressful time.
It was, and we felt the pandemic, the challenges of the mental health part of the pandemic as well, because our numbers did drop, people did stop coming. I'll be honest, I stopped going. There was about 2 months where I didn't even communicate with the team. I just disappeared. I wasn't doing anything bad. I was just hiding under my rock at home. But eventually I came back, and what I found was that there was actually a solid group of brothers and sisters who were coming regularly. And I was really encouraged by that. And they were not all Asian. They were mixed cultures. And that was encouraging too, as well. As much as I love being Korean, and I love Asians, I love the mix too as well. So that's something that was definitely good. But the stigma of Asian Americans not being open to discussing things that they're going through that are difficult, other than when it's like prayer requests for an ailing member, family member, or health issues. We don't talk about mental health. We don't talk about how much we're stressed. We just say we're stressed, and that's it. I've been stressed lately. We don't really go into detail about that, and we don't talk about, well, this is my struggle. I struggle with alcohol. I can't put any drinks down. I'm about to lose my job. Or we don't talk about, man, I just keep getting into these bad relationships and I don't know what to do, and I just get taken advantage of, or I can't stop looking up porn sites or whatever it might be. We don't talk about those, and there might be moments that we do, and there's another practice we have, is trying not to say we, but I'm Asian and we say we, but I'm gonna switch that. I'm gonna say me. Okay. So there are moments where I have been able to like share here or there, like kind of like pop it up. But other than with Celebrate Recovery, I haven't really had a chance to actively, openly, collectively go through a process of dealing with myself. And celebrate and it's known, it's kind of, I can comfortably say, we know that Asians are not open to discussing those kind of things, and maybe I'm no different either, but it was encouraging to know that Celebrate Recovery was starting with the full backing of the church, because I'm Asian. If I need it, maybe someone else might need it.
Very
Um,
much.
and it turned out that people do. And
Yes.
so, we're here, we're committed to the ministry,
Yes.
whether it's 20 people or whether it's, 80 people, we're here.
Hmm.
And if
Hmm.
we can journey with one brother or one sister to help them
Yes.
get through their struggles,
Yes.
it's all worth it. That's
Yes.
in the past, people used to say, if it helps one person, whatever it might be,
Hmm.
we've done our job, and it's all
Hmm.
worth it. So,
Amen.
going back to the spirit of that, if when you connect with one brother or sister and you can see their recovery beginning, and God working
Hmm.
in their lives, that's
Hmm.
amazing. It makes it all worthwhile. It
Hmm.
could be years and years of hardship, and ministry, flipping, flopping, teetering on, struggling, holding on by a hair, but you get that one brother or sister who you could just see the God's love just working in them, and it makes
Hmm.
all of that like just disappear, and
Yes.
being present in that space with them as they recover is amazing.
Yes. Amen. Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter. It's so wonderful to hear your ministry as well as the fruit that is flowing and empowering you, as well as your experience of healing and recovery. So thank you for your faithfulness over the past 2 years, sticking in there even when you've had a few setbacks, but you've come back and you're sharing more and more as God gives you open doors. So thank you so much. I'll do a debrief after this to explain all the gold nuggets you shared. So
Okay.
I don't take up any more of your time. You've really laid out a good checklist of the things that it would take to prepare a church to really bring this powerful program of life change into their midst. Because I mean, I've been a church member for a couple decades, and I've done different kinds of ministries in terms of teaching or in terms of discipleship. But there's nothing more powerful than this when you get to see a life go from bondage to freedom,
Amen.
to go from pain to healing. And so,
Amen.
thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, DJ. I appreciate it. It was an honor and a privilege to be a part of your show today.
Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Peter Ma, for sharing your experience with Celebrate Recovery Ministry at NewStory Church. It is such a valuable thing to be in community with others who struggle but are also in the process of recovery. There's something really amazingly powerful to be with fellow brothers and sisters and to share and to be heard, not be judged, and to be in a place of safety during that recovery process. Celebrate Recovery has helped over 7 million people around the world, and they are now walking in freedom through the power of Jesus Christ. Currently, over 35,000 churches have a Celebrate Recovery ministry. For your church to consider a Celebrate Recovery ministry, go to celebraterecovery.com and check it out. A lot of resources and support to help you for people who have hurts, habits, and hangups, and that includes mental health as well as addictions or other things that just keep people enslaved to things they need not to be. And there is also a monthly live virtual event called Cultural Communities Connections, especially for communities of color, whether Black, Latino, Indigenous, Asian American, Pacific Islanders, and other people of color. So it is contextualized for those around the world as people share their resources and stories of how this recovery journey can look like in different cultures, different communities. So I encourage you to get started at celebraterecovery.com. The process is very simple. Contact the state rep at the website, celebraterecovery.com. And they also have training conferences and events that you can learn how to get started. But it all starts with a church that has full backing and commitment to this ministry. It's not about numbers, it's about life change and seeing God at work. Thank you again, NewStory Church, for being a part of celebrating recovery for so many there in Los Angeles and beyond. And thank you for tuning in to Erasing Shame. Thank you for listening to the Erasing Shame podcast. check out the show notes at erasingshame.com and subscribe to our email for updates. We would love to hear from you, so please add your comments at our website or on social. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any podcast app, and you can also subscribe on YouTube or follow on Facebook. Please add a rating and review so we can reach more people with our message of health, hope, and compassion. This podcast is the digital outreach of Christian Asian mental health. Please consider partnering with us by making a tax-deductible donation at erasingshame.com, and together we can resolve the mental health crisis for every person. Thank you.